and to look at also a transitional government coming in. Now it's highly significant because obviously the group up until now has said that it would not negotiate, would not enter talks with the government until Mubarak stepped aside. And the organisation, as you say, has been banned and he's not able to participate in elections currently, although members do stand as independents. And the organisation has a vast, great network of support here, and is very, very highly respected for its welfare care and its social network in society. So it's a significant move, and it looks as if, as you've implied, that the developments, the resignations that were made among the NDP top brass, in addition to the conversations between Suleiman and various independents and opposition groups that we're not sure of who exactly they were, it seems to have galvanized a lot of energy there, and then amongst the Muslim Brotherhood, who obviously want to be part of some sort of dialogue now. And if they're given the opportunity to stand up and show that they are willing to make concessions, willing to be part of some sort of national dialogue to end this crisis, to try and, if you like, give voice to some of the demands of these protesters, then it's willing to do that.
Okay, well, do stay with us because we want to talk to you a little bit more about the mood of the protesters in Tahrir Square this night. But first of all, let's just get a roundup of the day's developments from Nick Spicer.
Egyptian TV announces big changes in the ruling party. Gone are the executive committee and the president's son, Gamal Mubarak. But it's the father who's got to go for the demonstrators. Army troops tried to take down their barricades earlier in the day. The head of the Army's Central Command came to ask them to go home so the country could go back to normal. They chanted back, "We're not leaving, he is." But Hosni Mubarak wasn't. Not yet, anyway. He met with senior cabinet members to talk about the economy, reeling after 1 million tourists fled. Still, the government would slowly get back to business, the Prime Minister told the nation.
I mean, for every day that goes, stability returns and we are more hopeful. We no longer see the events happening like last Friday, and security forces are gradually returning. Today you don't hear about more clashes, which shows that generally things are getting better. The opposition itself is very divided, but this doesn't mean that we won't talk to all parties. In the end, the main thrust of their demands is the same.
But the demands of the international community seem to have changed. In a surprise comment on Saturday, the former U.S. ambassador Washington sent to Cairo to talk to the Egyptian president seemed to back off on none too subtle hints that Mubarak must go.
I therefore believe that President Mubarak's continued leadership is critical. It's his opportunity to write his own legacy. He's given 60 years of his life to the service of his country. This is an ideal moment for him to show the way forward.
U.S. officials quickly said he was speaking as a private citizen and his views were his own. But Western diplomats have been slowly changing their emphasis from the need for immediate transition to the need for an orderly one. With Hillary Clinton saying that could happen under Vice President Omar Suleiman, who reportedly doesn't want to ask Mubarak to leave office right now. And that won't satisfy the tired but proud protesters in Liberation Square. There may be some changes in Egypt's ruling party and even in the views of the international community, but they say they aren't going until their president does. Nick Spicer, Al Jazeera.
Okay, well, let's return now to our correspondent in Cairo. It's the early hours of the morning there. Set the scene for us in Liberation Square.
Well, it's interesting, actually, that it's, 4 o'clock in the morning here, and suddenly there seems to be a bit of an upsurge of energy. It's been very quiet until now, but there's plenty of singing going on. Everyone seems to be awake. It would be pretty difficult not to be awake with that noise going on. It's calm. There was a little bit of tension earlier on, a few hours ago, with a bit of it wasn't a gunfire, if you like, at one end. The military presence is obviously still here, but it doesn't seem as certainly as heavy as it has been in recent nights. And as your report just said there, you know, they're steadfast in their demands. They're refusing to go. They're very well organised, and we'll see it out to the cause.
And are you still seeing signs of the presence of agitating pro-Mubarak groups around the city?
There hasn't been that hasn't been as obvious as it has been in recent days. Certainly, the gunfire that I referred to a second ago, it's presumed that was a member of one of these pro-Mubarak groups. But no, there's been a lot less tension. There was some tension earlier in the day when the military tried to move in to take away some of the barriers. And the protesters actually came out and sat rather dramatically right in front of the tank's turrets. And there was some rival sort of slogans that were being chanted amongst groups in the square, and I think the military were slightly nervous there and stepped in. But there was no violence there seemingly on the square itself. It has been calmer in general.
Okay, thanks very much for wrapping up the situation there in Cairo this night. Well, Egypt was top of the agenda at an international security summit attended by Western leaders in Germany on Saturday. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warned of a perfect storm across the Middle East if genuine reforms aren't implemented. From Munich, Tim Friend reports.
World leaders here are playing a game of catch-up. Taken by surprise by events in Egypt, they're grappling with who would take President Mubarak's place if and when he leaves office. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warned other leaders in the region they suppress dissent at their peril.
Some leaders may honestly believe that their country is an exception, that their people will not demand greater political or economic opportunities, or that they can be placated with half measures. Again, in the short term, that may be true, but in the long term, it is untenable.
The German leader, Angela Merkel, who saw revolution in Europe 20 years ago, sees parallels now in the Middle East.
Es ist absolut notwendig.
It is absolutely indispensable that those freedoms that we hold to be universal, freedom of the press, freedom of opinion, freedom of journalism, be upheld not only in Europe, in the United States, or all over the world, but that those who are in responsibility in Egypt are also called upon to ensure that these rights are respected.
The Quartet group of Middle East peace process mediators who've been meeting here have also been presented with fresh difficulties as a result of unfolding events in Egypt, because they've complicated an already stalled initiative. Until a week ago, many leaders at this conference were happy to do business with President Mubarak, ambivalent about his record so long as there was apparent stability. They deny they were slow to react.
I don't think it's about us being slow. I think it's about us being absolutely sure that what we're able to offer, we're going to deliver, because the EU will be involved in the region for years to come, continuing to fulfill the promises that we will now give.
One thing's for certain, world leaders here are desperate to find a new Egyptian administration with which they can do business. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera, Munich.
Well, a day after he was praised as wise by the Italian Prime Minister, Hosni Mubarak has had more words of support, this time from Israel's President Shimon Peres.
In spite of all the attacks against President Mubarak, I know him for many years throughout his presidency, and I credit him with one of the persons who saved many lives by preventing war in the Middle East. We saved life of Egyptians, of Arabs, of Israelis, by not allowing to renew a war. No matter what is now the criticism against him, his contribution for peace, as far as I'm concerned, will never be forgotten.
And let's get more from the US now and join our correspondent Monica Villamizar, who is live for us in Washington, D.C. Monica, significant comments today from Frank Wisner that Mubarak should stay in power, at least for now. What's been the US administration's reaction to that? Because it complicates their message, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely, Laura. And let me tell you and our viewers that the State Department spokesperson told Al Jazeera immediately after these comments by the ambassador that the ambassador was speaking really as a private citizen and that it was not by any means the official position of the Obama administration. And interestingly enough, he said as well, the spokesperson for the State Department, that is, that the ambassador was acting as a mediator, but he had a very punctual role that was sort of over now, that he was not relaying the president's messages to Mubarak anymore. He had traveled to Cairo Monday and then was back now, but was not in any case a spokesperson, if you will, for what the administration